Alright YouTube, so we're back, of course, to talk about some Final Fantasy VII Remake content, and we have a big video today, my dudes. The Material Ultimania Plus and the Trace of Two Paths light novel were both released yesterday in Japan. And of course, Audrey over on Twitter has been doing translations of the Ultimania currently. I think tomorrow she's doing the light novel. But there's some big stuff, my dudes, and she's done quite a bit of translations in the past 24 hours or so. I haven't scrolled through all of them. I haven't even seen the one she's done today specifically. I just kind of scrolled through her feed yesterday. But there's some big stuff, my dudes. The Toriyama talks about like the edge of creation. It seems to be confirming multiple timelines, or at least time stuff. He talks about Jessie and the possibility of her being alive, of course. And then you have like excerpts from the game where it's like dialogue between characters, like what they actually say, the script or whatever. But then like between what's said between the characters, you have like these little paragraphs and sentences of what the characters are thinking in their head and stuff. Like shit that we wouldn't even ever be able to know unless somebody were to tell us what they were thinking. Also, how could I forget, we have Toriyama kind of confirming the multiple Sephiroth theory that came out like last year, I believe it was. There was like this theory or something, or translation that somebody did, where it seemed like there was multiple Sephiroths throughout the game. And he kind of touches on that. We'll get to that when we get to it, though. But that's just the stuff that I had seen yesterday, just scrolling through her Twitter. That's not even me reading everything that she had done. So we're just going to hop right into it. This intro is already too long. So I scrolled down her Twitter feed to where she actually first started doing the translations, and we're just going to kind of work our way up the feed. But we're not going to cover everything unless it is video-worthy. We're not just going to put filler in this video, because it's already going to be long enough as it is. So first up, we're going to start with the 7 seconds until the end segment. The italicized like sentences, those are where it's like the character's thoughts, like I was talking about between dialogue. Let's just read the whole thing, and then we'll comment on it. 7 seconds until the end, time enough for you perhaps. Sephiroth says these words with a small smile on his face. If they do not fight together, all Sephiroth would do is just mess with Cloud. The future is up to you, Cloud. When Cloud turns around, Sephiroth is gone, but in his place is a black feather. Question, what kind of secret meaning is hidden within the words 7 seconds until the end? The area where you see Cloud and Sephiroth fighting in the last scene is called the end of the world. It's the edge of the world's space and time, and a place where time has stopped. Time is running out before the end of the world, and thus is represented by the words 7 seconds prior, or 7 seconds till the end for us. If time were to resume, either the world will meet its doom within 7 seconds, or, with some kind of power, the path of space and time can be changed. This is why Sephiroth tells Cloud, it is up to you. So this is what it's talking about whenever we have like Toriyama confirming the different timelines or time-based stuff, time travel, whatever you want to call it. Because apparently at the edge of creation, time has stopped. And whenever Sephiroth says 7 seconds till the end, it means that if time were to resume, the world will be destroyed within 7 seconds. I don't know what's destroying the world. Is that a ramification of us destroying the Whisper Harbinger and shit, defeating Destiny? Was it that big explosion we get whenever like Cloud deals the final blow to Sephiroth before they go to the edge of creation? Is that what's taking out the world? I don't exactly know, but you also have Toriyama confirming that they can either have the world be destroyed, or they can change the path of time and space, which seems to kind of confirm the different timeline thing, which is probably what that Terrier chip bag segment is, right? The different chip bag. We're in a different timeline now, where the world wasn't destroyed. That's how I interpret this. And unless I'm misinterpreting this or whatever, I would also think that might confirm that our group is in the same timeline as Zack, because we went down a different path of time and space, right, where the world wasn't destroyed within 7 seconds. I also think in a bit of a roundabout way, it might confirm that it wasn't necessarily the Whisper Harbinger, or the Whispers in general, or Sephiroth, or anybody specific that brought Zack back. It's just a different timeline where he survived. Maybe because of us, or maybe just in general it's a timeline where he didn't die. A lot to unpack here, my dudes. This is just the first translation. With this translation, we don't necessarily need to read all of it. The TLDR on this is that Yuffie did leave Midgar around the same time as our group, and part of why she was able to escape was the destruction of Sector 7. Security was busy. That's how she was able to sneak out, essentially. What exactly was Rufus's goal when he stepped out of the helicopter and onto the landing at the top of Shinra Building? On the surface level, Rufus arrived at Shinra Building after hearing the Avalanche had plans to attack within the area, so he headed over to headquarters. However, instead of being worried about his father, President Shinra himself, he was more worried about what unfortunate events might befall him. Perhaps he was prepared to take control should unforeseen circumstances arise where he'd have to bargain with others behind the scenes. So Rufus not really caring about what's going to happen to his dad isn't really surprised. Somewhere in the lore, I believe maybe around before Crisis or something, like I'm pretty sure he like squatted up with Avalanche and like put out like a hit on President Shinra to get him killed or something like that. Something along those lines. So we already know Rufus doesn't give a shit about Shinra. President Shinra to be exact. And the line about bargaining behind the scenes, it might also be a reference to Avalanche, at least the Avalanche people that he works with, so to speak. Question, you can't fall in love with me, even if you think you have, it's not real. Aerith says these lines, but what exactly was the intent? At this point in the game, Aerith is physically locked up in the Shinra building. However, through some type of conscience, she is able to use the livestream to bring forth an Aerith that has memories closest to the future. What the fuck? Her words not only are for Cloud, but she might also be speaking to herself as well. Despite what her words request, perhaps her true heart and thoughts are closed off. We'll go on to read some more translations with the Chapter 14 Aerith Resolution scene, but like the Aerith that Cloud talks to in the garden it's not necessarily a dream, but it's also not physically Aerith, but it is actually Aerith, if any of that makes any sense. As for Toriyama saying that it's like a future Aerith, or like she summons an Aerith that has memories closest to the future, I don't even know how to interpret that, if I'm honest. So here we have the Jesse segment. In the ending scene where Biggs wakes up, Jesse's bandana and gloves are laid out on the desk. Does this mean she's alive? Well, we do see Biggs alive in the ending scene since he's physically shown. On the other hand, Jessie is not shown in the ending because we couldn't save her. Or that's what you might think. If Biggs' life can be saved by some miracle, that means other members could be saved too. Perhaps Jessie might also be spared or not. However, an important theme of this story is loss. If all characters you see are able to survive in the future, then perhaps that would be in a different world. So, this might be the first time that I can actually say on this channel that it is possible that Jessie is alive. And when I say that is that last line that Toriyama throws out where he says, if all characters you see are able to survive in the future, then perhaps that would be in a different world. Based on the education segment that we already read, we should be in a different world, right? We're in a different timeline. If we continue down the same path, 7 seconds till the end, the world was going to be destroyed. That clearly didn't happen, so we're in a different world. So maybe Jessie is alive. I also found it pretty interesting that the person asking the question says that it's Jesse's bandana and gloves, and Toriyama didn't correct that, because I always took it as, obviously it was definitely Jesse's glove, but maybe it was Biggs' bandana, because he also wears a red bandana, and his head's wrapped right now, so he's not wearing his bandana. But apparently it's also Jesse's bandana, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Here we have Tifa's resolution scene in Chapter 14. They took everything from us again. All the emotions that she had held back come spilling out. The death of her parents, the destruction of their home, all the sadness she had felt up until now is released. She puts her face against Cloud and starts crying. The flowers tremble against the wind, the blue light is reflected in the water. Tifa's voice carrying her sadness rings throughout the quiet of the night. Cloud tries to wrap his arms around her. He does so slowly at first, but then takes the plunge and hugs her. More so than conveying his thoughts to Tifa, a part of him that he had hid in the recesses of his mind comes to light, where he always wanted to become a cool hero who can save Tifa. He finds happiness that he was able to do this for her. Or rather, it becomes something akin to a blunder of youth that Cloud has never experienced before, which leaves a bittersweet memory. A small smile of satisfaction crosses his face. Tifa cries start to calm down, and the quiet of the night returns. That's a big example of what I was talking about, man. Like, there's just a small dialogue there between Cloud and Tifa, but you get this, like, huge couple of paragraphs of, like, what are going through the characters' minds and shit. Cloud wanted to be the cool hero to save Tifa. Shit that we never would have known if they never did this. Has this ever been done in, like, one of their Ultimanias before, where they, like, have dialogue with characters and their, like, inner thoughts? Because I don't recall this ever being a thing. Either way, I absolutely fucking love this shit. This is, like, deep, deep lore, essentially. This is shit we would never, ever know. So here we have the Barrett Resolution scene. Yeah, they'll all be fine. They're strong. They're tough like me. Barrett says this as a prayer that leaves his mouth. Even though Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse were at the pillar, there's a high possibility that they were saved. After we save Aerith, I'll introduce you to them. Sounds good. Never thought I'd feel better after talking with your hard-boiled ass. Cloud loosens up as well when he sees this gentle side of Barrett. So unlike how he usually presents himself with a foul mouth, Barrett smiles a bit bashfully. Think you can sleep now? Oh yeah, like a baby. The two of them walk back. They exchange some playful banter such as Cloud asking, can you stop snoring? And Barrett replying with, huh. But you cannot hear their voices. The two disappear as they continue walking while teasing each other. Now to be clear here with the beginning part of that, even though the Ultimania says Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge at the pillar, that's not even who Barrett was talking about within that scene, because he talks about Finn and Al and Nelly, just other people that he knows and other members of Avalanche. Though I'm sure he's also talking about Jesse, Biggs, and Wedge. But I absolutely love this scene, the Barrett Resolution scene, because Barrett is on Cloud's ass throughout the majority of the game, and I'm not sure if this is the first time where he kind of comes around to liking Cloud, but it's definitely a good scene for, like, character building for these two. So here we have the Aerith Resolution scene, and there's a lot of dialogue here. We don't need to read all this, but the important part is the kind of bigger part towards the middle, where Aerith and Cloud both look up to, like, the green ore in the sky of the live stream. Aerith turns her head and seems like she notices something. She looks sad. Cloud follows her line of sight and sees the skies above Sector 7 shining with a green light that almost looks like an aura. It's the souls of those who died from the plate drop returning to the live stream. Is that... Aerith does not answer. Instead, she puts her hands together in prayer. Cloud stares at the dreamlike light in the sky. Everyone dies eventually. Cloud isn't sure how to interpret her message. I suppose Aerith lets go of her hands. So this was a pretty big reveal, my dudes, because obviously whenever Aerith and Cloud look up to the sky, we know that it's like Mako, or it's the live stream or something like that. It's green shit in Final Fantasy VII. We know what it is. But to have the confirmation that it's specifically the souls of the people that died during the Sector 7 destruction, That's a pretty big reveal, man. Puts a lot more impact on this scene. When Marlene hugged Aerith, it seemed like she saw something. What exactly happened during that scene? When you come into contact with Aerith, depending on that person's sensitivity, visions start to appear that pass through time and space. Marlene was frightened while in 7th heaven, and as Aerith tried to calm her down, her own frantic thoughts brushed with Marlene. During this, Marlene saw something that she was not supposed to see. As to what exactly she saw, I'll just have to leave it up to the imagination of players at this point. So no real answers there, but we do get a bit of confirmation that Aerith didn't intentionally show Marlene something to calm her down. It just kind of happened in the moment. But also seems like Toriyama is teasing that we'll find out what Marlene saw eventually. He's leaving it up to interpretation for now. Reno and Rude both have doubts about the Sector 7 plate. Can you explain why you strongly focused on showing the human side of these two characters? Since the first installment of the remake takes place solely in Midgar, we decided from the beginning to really focus on fleshing out the Shinra characters. Reno and Rude, as well as the Turks, are very popular characters throughout the compilation, so we decided to give them more scenes and really dig into their characters. While the Turks are ruthlessly devoted to their line of work, we also wanted to touch upon their attitudes towards the different missions that they are assigned. For example, we wanted to show what exactly they were thinking when doing these jobs, and I think we were able to deepen the more human side of them. So this is actually something I've talked about in the past. I mentioned somewhere in a video some time ago, I don't even remember what video it would have been, about Reno and Rude being bad guys, but not entirely bad guys, because they regret the Sector 7 destruction, and see how conflicted they were with that. And I had people argue with me about that, and here you have co-director Toriyama confirming this shit. It's pretty obvious, you can tell they're conflicted on this if you played the game and paid attention, but they still did it because of their devotion to Shinra. Here we have the Honeybee and dance scene, and again, like the Aerith Resolution scene, there's a lot of dialogue here, but there's only a specific part that we need to read, and it's about Cloud, subconsciously recalling Zack. Aerith gives Cloud a thumbs up to cheer him on. Cloud lets out a sigh and looks up towards the ceiling. A spotlight shines and his vision fills with light. For a moment, he has a flashback of Zack's smile when he's having fun. This part is not shown in the cutscene, but it sets the pace for how Cloud acts afterwards. For Cloud, Zack is the spitting image of what it means to be a soldier. He thinks about what Zack would do if he was in his shoes. He unconsciously recalls that Zack would probably just enjoy himself in this type of situation. Although Cloud was confused for a moment, he hardens his resolve as he steps up to Andrea. Andrea then smiles at him. So for starters, as they say, this wasn't actually shown in the game. And he's not literally thinking of Zack, because if he could recall Zack, that would just break his mind, because obviously he took on the persona and personality and characteristics of Zack. So he can't actually be thinking about him, but I thought it was interesting that they put emphasis on him subconsciously thinking of what Zack would do. When Eric says Zack's name, Cloud appears to have a headache. Is this because in order to protect his false memories, something is causing this reaction? This occurs when Cloud has an excessive reaction to a name he either doesn't want to recognize or hear. This date scene in the Evergreen Park is also present in the original Final Fantasy VII, which was very memorable. However, when you think about how Cloud imagines that Aerith was once on a date in the same place with someone else, he has rather complicated feelings. This perhaps increases the depth to his character. For some reason, whenever Audrey put this translation on Twitter, she seemed confused by it, but it seems pretty straightforward to me. Obviously, he doesn't want to hear or recall Zack's name, doesn't want to recognize it, because if he did, it would break him mentally. But also, the fact that he has complicated feelings, because in the past, Aerith went on a date here, probably with Zack, and he's jealous because he has feelings for Aerith. Seems pretty straightforward to me. So here we have the Tifa, Aerith, Marlene segment. I'm sorry, I can't stay here, I have to help them. Go follow your heart. Tifa nods, and then a worried expression crosses her face. Aerith, there's a bar in the center of town, 7th heaven. I need you to get Marlene to safety, right? It's okay, I'll find her. Tifa knows that she never talked about Marlene to Aerith, so for a moment she's very surprised. Aerith looks at her with sharp eyes and smiles gently. Tifa is slightly confused, but Aerith's expression gives her strength, and she readies herself to go forth. Tifa thinks it's strange that Aerith knew about Marlene even before she explained the situation to her. So that's obviously a scene we've talked about a few times here on the channel, and just in general we've all kind of talked about it. They don't really give us answers as to how Aerith knows about Marlene or whatever, outside of just Aerith having all kinds of crazy knowledge or whatever. But I like that we get the inner, thoughts of Tifa in that moment of she realizes and is aware that she never mentioned Marlene to Aerith, but Aerith already knew. This translation right here is a big one, my dudes. When Cloud and Aerith are talking in the church, visions of some apparition appear. Did something trigger these visions? The materia wrapped in Aerith's hair that her mother gave her was the catalyst for these visions. What Cloud saw was a scene that symbolizes what may happen to them in the future. When Aerith said to Cloud that he was a mercenary, it's written like it was a slip of the tongue. How does Aerith know that Cloud is a merc? This is made clear in Chapter 17 as Aerith has a lot of various memories that allow her to know many things, but she tries to not make this known to those around her. However, one of the memories allowed her to know for some reason that Cloud was a merc, and she accidentally let that line slip. Some of the whispers in the story are trying to steal away the memories that Aerith has within her. So, for starters, based on this translation, it seems like the Holy Materia that Aerith has in her ribbon, tied up in her hair, is what is giving people visions when they come in contact with her or when they're around her. So it seemed that the Holy Materia is why Aerith has all of the knowledge that she has when it comes to Remake. I don't know exactly how, and they refer to a lot of the shit that we see and the shit that Aerith knows as memories, and memory is something that happens in the past. So it seems like this would be another roundabout confirmation of Remake being some sort of follow-up or sequel, because these things that Aerith knows are things that happened in the past. So the shit that we're seeing that should be in the future taking place after the events of the Midgar segment are actually memories within Aerith, so again, they happened in the past. And for some reason, which I guess we don't know currently, the Whisperers were trying to take away these memories. I don't know why, but there it is. The Sephiroth that appears in Chapter 2 and the Sephiroth we see in Chapter 18's Edge of Creation both are trying to avoid the destruction of the planet, but are the two connected? The Sephiroth that you see throughout the game are all different, whether he's an illusion that only Cloud sees, or a vision that Sephiroth created of himself, a vision represented by the cloaked figures, or even Sephiroth himself. All these stem from the will and conscience of Sephiroth that is at play here. They all mention the same goals, but they all seem to be torn with Cloud's heart. When Sephiroth says, "These are our precious memories," it brings to mind the line where Cloud says in Advent Children, "Stay there in my memories." What exactly is the meaning behind this? Sephiroth's physical body is dead, killed by the hands of Cloud himself, but even so, he's a part of Cloud's memories. For Sephiroth, Cloud is one of the few people who he thinks understands him and can serve as either a comrade or an old rival, so he wants to keep this strong connection with him. Because of that, he uses the word memories to refer to those thoughts. So a couple things to unpack here. For starters, we get confirmation from Toriyama about the multiple Sephiroths, but I think he's also confirming that there's not actually literally multiple Sephiroths, which I think was the miscommunication when the translation or whatever came out like a year or so ago. There's not actually multiple Sephiroths running around Midgar in the world. Like, we're not going to be playing part 2, we're exploring some location, we turn a corner and we're staring down 3 or 4 Sephiroths standing side by side. It's still just one guy. Something else I found interesting is the person that asked the first question that we looked at right there says that both Sephiroths are trying to avoid the destruction of the planet, which I found to be kind of strange, because isn't that Sephiroth's goal, at least with the original FF7? He wants to wound the planet, destroy the planet, so they can absorb all the life stream. So why would he be trying to prevent the destruction of the planet? And lastly, the thing I wanted to touch on is that Toriyama says that Sephiroth's physical body is dead, but I don't know if he's referencing like the events of OG FF7, or technically I guess Crisis Core, where Cloud quote-unquote kills Sephiroth, throws him into the livestream or whatever, or if he's referencing the end of Advent Children, where again Cloud quote-unquote kills Sephiroth. Also, if Sephiroth's physical body is dead, then how is any of the Sephiroths that we see throughout the game actually supposed to be Sephiroth himself, which is what Toriyama said previously of the multiple Sephiroths. Also, the multiple Sephiroth stuff, since they all seem to be conscious of Sephiroth, right? Like the visions that Cloud sees, illusions, the cloaked figures, or Sephiroth himself. Would it also be confirming that none of the Sephiroths that we're seeing within Remake, like Genova Sephiroths, like they were in the original Final Fantasy VII? A lot of thought-provoking stuff here, a lot of questions, a lot of theories we could go over, but my dudes, I think that's where we're going to wrap this video up, because this is already getting long as hell, and I don't even think I've touched half of the translations that she's done, and I've skipped several, and there's still so many to go over, we can't possibly do this in one video. So we're going to have to call this video quits, and tomorrow we'll probably do some more translations. Now, I don't know if we're going to continue the Ultimate translation she's already done, or if we're going to look at some of the Tell Two Past translations that she's going to do tomorrow. I don't know yet. We're going to do some more shit tomorrow for sure, but goddamn, there's so much info, man. But of course, big shout out to Audrey, iTaikamochi on Twitter. She'll be linked in the description if you want to go check it out. You can read up on some of these translations if you want to before I make a video tomorrow, whatever you want to do. Either way, that's the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you guys already want to do more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter, dashingdavidYT. I'm a Discord. Links to social networks are in the description. And in the outro. Later, guys.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.